So I'll call the planning board meeting of July 26th, 2018 to order at 7:08 present. Joe McCaffrey, Hal Kreider, select persons Rep. Beth Boudreau, Chair Bob Strobel, town staff. Voting designation same. We have minutes of July 12th, 2018 to approve, and I would
Motion to approve.
entertain a motion to that. Mr. McCaffrey makes the motion. We have a second.
Sure.
Second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on the motion. Anything in the minutes?
Well, they read well to me, but I wasn't there, so I don't know if it's accurate.
I would have just a little question
Sure.
on page 2.
Line number?
And the line number, well, it's 30 through 34.
Okay. Yeah.
Just the reference, to minor site plan to add to the outdoor display area near the front lot frontage. And since I happen to know just from reading some other things that referred to vehicles or trailers for display, was that discussed? Just to say display area versus display area for vehicles. I'm just wondering if that was brought into the talk at that point. Display area.
Yeah, we discussed that, and it's acknowledged openly in the narrative. Nobody's trying to.
No. I just say if it said that only, I don't know that it's kind of clear.
Yeah, I think that's just the.
A display area is just a little too generic for me, that's all, as far as the wording, but that...
Okay. I think that's just the agenda heading we've been using, which is just a short summary, but we can add vehicle display area.
Right. As long as it was mentioned elsewhere. It wasn't clear enough.
Okay. Anything else? And you're good on language?
Yeah.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor of the assuming amended minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. So one due to absence.
I'll
Joe?
vote, yeah, aye.
Okay. Thank you. So 301 approved. Okay. We'll get into cases. I'll try to go through as to make up a little bit of lost time. So I'll call case 18-08, which is the Landry case. You should have a 11 by 17 with some red letters printed out on it that came in today, I think. Okay. Thank you. And we had a chance to...
And this update is just, I think, is...
We can share a copy. It's easy for us to do that.
Thank you.
there's a very small print, which I have. It's regarding the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services.
Right.
Yeah, I can explain some just what that is.
Let's get on the clock first.
Yeah.
But that's what that was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as completeness goes, we got this 2 weeks ago or in the mail. Anybody have anything outstanding? If not, I would entertain a motion to find the application complete.
So moved.
Second? Okay. Motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Mr. McCaffrey. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining. Okay. So we're on the clock for 65 days. Essentially, if you're not familiar with the process, I know you are probably familiar with the process, but just from I'm guessing you are the Landrys and the owners. We have 65 days to make a decision based on the information we've garnered at this point in time, up to that point in time, unless you request an extension. Generally, it doesn't take us that long to work, but at least that's the law, so I need to follow that. So I'll open case 18-08 and read the abutters list. If you are present in the audience, please both raise your hand and say something so I know you're here. You'll be given an opportunity to speak during the public comment section. I'm going to try this, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Well, let me just say the schmoop of Lucas Pond.
Yes.
Jody and, is it Uwe?
Yeah, Uwe.
Uwe, okay. Okay. Thank you. Paul and Pamela Lovett. James Homan of Northwood. Charles and Diane Kazarian of Northwood. Evelyn and Donna Bunker of Nottingham. Sean and Tony Valley of Bunker Lane, Northwood. Walter and Ann Schleich of Northwood. Okay. And just in case I didn't say it, voting designation of planning board members is all members present. So I did a guess of introductions, but why don't you introduce yourselves and give us a brief overview, and members of the public, of what you want to do.
Yep. My name is Ray Bisson from Stonewall Surveying. I'm here to represent Brian and Caitlin Landry. The property is at 129 Lucas Pond Road. It's tax map 244 and it's lot 13. My clients purchased this property in 2009. It's about approximately 7 acres of land with an existing house. Last year, Brian and Caitlin started their family with the birth of their daughter, Jaden. Oh, it's been a little over a year now. While they have been enjoying their time with Jaden, they quickly realize that they will quickly outgrow their existing home, especially as the family grows. They also realize, with the existing house being only 53 feet from Lucas Pond Road, that there is a safety factor for Jaden as she gets older. Brian and Caitlin love the area and don't want to relocate. Since they own 7 acres of land, they decided they would like to build a new home towards the back of their property. The current property is about 290 feet wide and 1,050 feet long, and about 7 acres in size. The current zoning regulation requires 150 feet of frontage and 2 acres for a single-family residence in the general district zone. The existing property has 291.29 feet of frontage, which would make the proposed lot only 141.29 feet, where 150 feet is required. Also, existing house well would be 10.1 feet from the proposed property line, where 20 feet is required. Variances were received on January 29th, 2018 for both of these issues. The project requires approximately a 750-foot-long gravel driveway to access the building area. The only pavement to be done would be an apron along the road and the paved area at the house. Several conversations were had with Charlie Pease from the highway department, and he didn't see any issue with the driveway entrance as long as the vegetation was kept clear. Water runoff comes down Bunker Lane and on the properties across the street and crosses the road via a culvert into the subject property. These wet areas are poorly drained hydric soils with no standing water. These areas were dried up when test pits were dug. This requires 3 wetland crossings, which we have basically one here, one right here, and then this one here. This one looks like it's a little bit larger, but again, it's just the way that the terrain is, and you can walk through there most times.
Thank you for using color.
Yeah, it's always tough to know what's going to stand out. The proposed house lot, which is the existing house, is going to be 2.07 acres. In the 5.23 acres would be the remaining piece all the way out back. State of New Hampshire subdivision approval was received on July 5th in 2018, and the New Hampshire DES wetland crossing permit is being submitted. Basically, the orange color is basically the building window. The green is the wet areas, and the blue is the property lines themselves. It's fairly, I mean, it has a little bit of a slope, but it's fairly flat on a lot of properties. The site distances were done basically back in December when there was no leaves, and which is hence one of the notes on there in red is pertaining to keeping this area clear of debris. The other note was basically talking about the driveway. It's going to be a gravel drive, pretty much the entire extent, basically from right by the apron, it'll be gravel all the way up until where they get to the house, and then they're going to do a paved around the garage, where the garage is. Test pits were dug, and we have because of the well being here, going for state approval, we have to basically show that we could have another well on the property. So we are showing that we need that. We also did a 4K area on this lot as well, just to meet the state guidelines. I guess that's it. Is there any questions?
So Ray, the state will designate how to do the wetlands crossings?
Yes, there was the plan's been put in place. The state will come back with certain recommendations that they'll have. One of them would probably be that they can't do construction in April for the driveway. That would have to be done in a drier time of the year. If there's any particular, the designer did not, because there was no channels, there was no defined channel, no brook, he didn't see that a culvert was going to do anything because of the way the flow is. The state may have a different opinion on how they might want to do that.
But ultimately, it's their jurisdiction as to how it is designed or how it's installed?
Correct. Well, I mean,
It's not the town.
Yeah, okay.
right, it's under design, but if they actually don't like something in it, the state would actually come back with a recommendation of what they want.
Okay. So, the only thought I had on the driveway, just language is everything, and so maybe something on that newly added red part is to say that the driveway in that area shall be always maintained as gravel, so that it doesn't get, in the future, paved over.
It can't, according to our code, it can't be paved over without a conditional or a special exception from the zoning board. The note that I have under 1A,
Hold on a second, where's that? Oh.
on my
here.
staff
Staff
report,
comments.
the zoning code wetland overlay refers to needing a special exception to allow both the structure and the use. It permits driveways and culverts to go through a wetland by right to get to a single family or a duplex. So the use of the driveway is permitted by right, but the phrase "the structure and the use" would imply to us that a structure in that wetland would require a special exception.
Okay.
So a driveway that is not a structure is a driveway made of natural materials. We would consider
Right.
gravel a natural material. If they pave it, it becomes a structure, and a structure would need the special exception. So they could be subject to code enforcement if they paved it without having that permission.
Are you clear on that?
I'll ask just to, it's Ray, is
Ray.
it Bissum?
Yes,
Or Bison?
listen.
You mentioned the proposed well in the existing, behind the existing house there. So but that was just to satisfy
The state
the
guidelines,
state-
yes.
the state guidelines. There is a well
Yes,
in
it's-
place.
It's to the right of the house.
Okay, yeah.
It's 10 feet from the property
Right.
line,
Oh, I
the
see it.
proposed line.
Yeah. The, okay, and, but that functions fine. This is just in case there had to be a change.
Correct, and that was one of the things we did get the variance for. One of their concerns was.
Because you're within this, you don't meet the setback there. and so
Correct,
forth,
but
yeah.
the, what their original concern that they actually had with the well was, basically being, close to the road and with salt or whatever, but the well itself is actually uphill of the actual road itself, so that wouldn't be an issue.
Probably a couple of 100 feet below,
Yeah, that's,
yeah.
Well, the idea is that in a case like that, you'd have sheet flow coming off the road into the ditch, overtopping the well
Yeah.
and coming down into it, or
So-
through
Yeah,
any rust holes or anything that's in the casing. So even if it is 10 feet above, that takes care of the sheet flow off of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
The proposed well location, that's that one for the new house, that's.
Yep, that's clear in the
has,
back.
Yeah. That's good right now, as far as that's where you plan to put it, right, so.
Yep.
And the house location, is that 4K area designation?
No, that's the
that's
septic.
for the septic.
Oh, septic, no.
But the house would,
The house hasn't been really set there then?
right.
Okay,
In general, the house will be.
It's gonna be
in
near that.
area, but it
Yeah.
doesn't, our regs don't require that the house location be specified.
yeah.
We can intuit it though, based on those two.
On the sightlines, you already mentioned that the idea is to keep it cleared. I can see on the corner, I can't picture, I've been by there a few times, but I can't picture it exactly but there's apparently a brush and whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of
There goes-
sumac right now that's kind of grown up
And
there.
that responsibility is going to be these folks, yeah, just to keep that cleared back. I can see it being just on the edge of problematical if it's overgrown there. The 200, you say 300 feet, 250 is required.
Right.
So just that little corner, it seems,
Right, that's where
Just-
I've been actually parking when I do the work
Okay.
out there, and I've basically noticed, the change with the seasons.
Okay.
But you can still,
Yeah.
it's slow enough there. that
Yeah.
you can see.
and with this heavy rain and all, sightlines actually, with the bushes, when they go over, even those change, I've noticed, my own and elsewhere. How about the neighbor there? Is he got any responsibility? Is there any brush there or something that?
No, right now,
that
the
corner
brush
comes
itself-
to.
There's a little stone wall right here. For the most
Uh-huh.
part, this is all lawn.
Okay, it's all open.
Yeah, there's really not much
Okay.
on that side,
Okay.
outside of what's on the wall
Yeah.
itself. So
Okay.
maybe a couple things right over the wall, but it's right at the wall.
Okay,
Okay,
good. Thanks.
okay. So on your review, it looks to me like all the items have been addressed.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns about the driveway. Now that the applicant brought up the visibility and has added that note, a note like that would be exactly what we would want to see added to the plan, so we're perfectly fine with that. So I would say of the conditions of approval that were in my staff report, item number 1 has been taken care of. In item 2, we have received a copy of the subdivision permit. We've received a copy of the wetland permit application, and we would still want the wetland permit itself once issued. I don't believe a driveway permit has been issued yet.
It was actually in the application.
Was it?
I saw. the
We'll check on
application
that,
for the-
but the,
In a case like this where we're looking at conditional approvals anyway,
that's not going to be the permit we're waiting on.
Yeah, no,
The wetland
exactly.
permit's the one we're going
if
to be
you've already
waiting
taken
on.
care of it, which the federal, state, and local permits are almost always boilerplate. We almost always include them anyway, even if they're in the application, just to cover both sides of the table.
So we would still want signed and stamped full copies.
Right.
And then under the items prior to a building permit, we have received a state-approved septic design, so number 5 is taken care of. We would still need the plat to be recorded.
This was the driveway permit in the application.
Application, warranty deed.
Oh, it's right here.
Permit.
Just wanna-
That's the application.
Oh, the application. I'm saying,
Yeah.
oh, I'm saying, yeah, the application was in there,
Yeah.
not the permit, right?
Okay. So once that,
We're halfway there.
those two permits are issued, then we'll get those. So if there are any other factual comments, we'll take them. Otherwise, I'd suggest opening it to the public.
Exactly. That's where I was going next.
I just,
Oh, sure.
just to clarify something, because you brought up the Bunker Lane, you said there's a runoff that occurs occasionally, just, that's a gravel,
Yes.
private, right? It's a private
Yes.
drive, yeah. Just describe that again, are there any issues occurring there, is it,
No, that just appears that that's where the water is coming from. There's no culvert in here. Going across the road this way. So any runoff to go through here is coming down, down here and going across.
it actually comes,
Across the road.
Right.
doesn't it drop off towards the pond there, on either side of Bunker a bit? I mean, I'm just wondering, so
It goes
What's
up,
on the-
well, it goes up. This way it's going up.
it's up,
This is going down.
okay.
But it's fairly, not too steep in here. I mean, it goes 90 feet.
That's
It's
100%.
90 here, 106 up here.
I'm just trying to picture why it's, the water's running out there, or just, you know. But
Change it.
you
We're not
brought that
gonna
up
change it
because, is there anything that needs addressing?
Well, I think that's,
Well,
that's,
It's more of just where the water is coming from
Yeah,
for
and
those
that's something that
areas.
Charlie would, piece would need to address, not
Well-
us tonight.
well, or the
Again, we
association on the other side, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so we have the two permits. Okay, so conditions I have are prior to the signing of plans, number 2 and number 3, and then before the issuing of the building permit, number 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, on the
And I
basis of
think-
the conditions, I'd make a motion to approve 18
Have it
dash
open
eight.
to the public.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you
No
gotta do
I
public.
just wanted to double check
Yeah, I'm sorry, my fault.
that we're good. Okay. Caught me in the middle of getting through my butters list. So at this point, I will open the hearing to public comment. We have one abutter, Ms. Schmook. If you would like to speak, abutters have the chance to do so. You're not required to do so. The only thing that we ask is that you speak into the microphone. Okay? Certainly. At this point, I'll open it to any members of the public who would like to speak on this application. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll close the public comment section for this application. And at this point, unless there's any questions from the board or town staff, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'll repeat that, even though I jumped the gun before.
That's okay. You've never done that before.
Doesn't allow you to make any comment that you didn't choose to make after that. Well, I'd make a motion to approve 18-08,
Subject to the conditions
the
stated.
conditions that you
Okay.
cited just before.
And a second?
Second.
So motion by Mr. McCaffrey, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on the motion. And you're all clear on the
You're all
3
clear.
conditions, essentially. Do you have comments you have Mr. Burton's comments?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, number 3, and number 4, under the
I'll
recommended.
renumber them when I put them in the notice of
Exactly.
decision.
You'll get notice of decision. I just always like to make sure the applicants are aware of what we're agreeing to before you get that letter of decision, so there's no surprises. Because I can't change them after that. Okay. We're ready for a vote?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. good to go.
Thank you.
You'll get a letter of decision from town staff shortly, and it'll spell everything out. Once you get those conditions in and met, I'll come in and I'll sign the plans, and you'll be ready to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the new house.
Mr. Pearson, just a comment unrelated, and I didn't want to take it as part of this application. I found your blueprints interesting to read. It took me a minute. I would suggest, this is strictly a suggestion, and it's just my personal opinion, having done this many years, you might want to do a legend. Sometimes it helps. It took me a couple minutes to find where you had annotated them. And just, again, my personal preference. But thank you. Otherwise, your drawings are lovely.
Thank you.
I like the color.
Yes.
For the file.
Have a good night. Thank you. You're welcome.
And if you want to hold on to a copy of
Right over to Susan for conservation.
You going up or down on that file? Okay. Yeah, I got my special one.
Jerry, see that?
I know. I already turned it up from 68.
Whoa!
It was 64 in here. I was shivering.
I'm shivering already.
You're supposed to be watching out for a town electric bill.
Yeah, non-public. They were like, oh, why is it so close? And Gary came in and was like, oh, yeah, 64.
So
No one has 64.
I'm just moving this because Gary doesn't like when I bump the papers against him.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. Waste him up.
Was I confused between that and the sidewalk?
Got more Beth space. I should have let you sit where you normally
I know, it's okay. Here. I can put that there.
This is the Hardy metal group?
Yeah.
Okay. So just a side conversation, gentlemen. When's the price of iron going to go back up?
Hopefully soon. Yeah, hopefully soon.
That's what everybody says.
It's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but they can help give us some guidance as
He
to whether to
wants-
hold on to it or bring it down.
He wants a special price.
But the flowers out front look beautiful.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah, we just
welcome.
resided the barn too.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It's come a long ways.
Yeah.
It looks really good. You wouldn't know it's a, like a junk thing.
Yeah.
Recycle.
Yeah, it's recycling.
Quality
It's not
metal.
supposed to junk.
Looks really nice though.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chadbourne. Chadbourne?
Chadbourne's a restaurant.
Yeah.
We used, when we first moved here, that was open.
Yeah.
okay.
That's father. Yeah, father.
Singing something about
Piano.
when they said that they wanted
So I'll call case 18-09, Harding Metals. You ready to
Yeah, come on.
go ahead?
Yep.
Okay.
Getting close to my bedtime.
hit the microphone.
Better than I am.
I know.
So we need to find complete first. I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Mr. McCaffrey. Any discussion, anything anybody wants to see? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, those abstaining? Okay, so we're on the clock, and I'll formally open case 18-09, Harding Metals, lot 23479. And if you are a member of the public or in a butter, and you hear your name called, please both raise your hand and say something so that I know you're here. Marston Family Trust of Northwood. Vincenzo Porcella of Northwood. Thomas and Cheryl Lacola of Northwood. John Bain of Northwood, town of Northwood. Linda Wright of Northwood. Elias Ververitis of Northwood. Hanford Brothers of Portland, Maine. or a representative thereof. Irving Oil of Portsmouth. Edwin Harding of Northwood. And Mr. Frankwitz is here for Brown Engineering. And Northwood DOT is not here. Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, you're on the clock. We're on the clock, actually. You might be on the clock, too. Mr. Frankwitz is on the clock.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Why don't you give us, introduce yourselves and give us an overview of what you want to do.
With me tonight is Rio St. Germain and Ryan Chadbourne from Harding Metals. And those who don't know me, it's Scott Frankwitz from Brown Engineering Surveying.
Okay.
So it's a pretty simple application. The floor plan set seems more than it is. There's this little structure, but we did the existing conditions, updated the existing conditions that's out there. So that's page number 2 is what's current out there prior to this building. The lot's about 32 acres. They get the one access off of Route 4. There's 5 existing buildings totaling around 38,000 square feet. That 38,000 is important because that determines the setbacks in a commercial zone. So we've got a 150-foot setback, side setback, and 300-foot front setback for the new building. The new building is approximately 151 feet from the westerly sideline. It is a 40 by 50 building, 3-sided building with an open front to be used for a new service that they're going to be providing. There is no new employees. We had talked in the planning meeting that there might be one, but there's not going to be any additional employees. The impervious, there's no increase in impervious because where the building is going, this whole area is already a concrete pad, so they're just putting it on the concrete pad. So one of the things we asked for was a waiver from the stormwater requirement. Because of that, we're not increasing impervious or changing anything. Really, not even grading. We did show on the plan some silt fence and stuff to go around the site while they're putting the building up. But there's no ground, no dirt work or anything. So we asked for a waiver for that. And the impervious isn't increasing. You get about 17% impervious on the site. Are allowed up to 50, but we're not increasing that either. So that is an issue. And that's about.
Excuse me, what is it on the site, just to repeat those?
The impervious, as it exists right now, is 17% of the site.
17.
Yeah.
I didn't catch the number, that's all. Yeah.
And you're allowed up to 50% in the commercial. And I believe that's everything on the plan. The pink is the new building. It's a 40 feet deep, 50 feet wide. The green is the setback from the abutter to the west.
Okay. Okay, questions? I had a question on the, if you're looking at sheet 3, next to the proposed building, you have the propane building
Yes.
as a label that exists currently,
It exists. It's a
building?
3-sided building, correct?
and it exists as just propane storage currently?
Which building is he at?
This one right here.
Fuel.
Fuel?
It's not propane, it's diesel tank.
Okay,
Sorry, yeah.
okay, so it'll remain as diesel?
It will, fueling island, correct.
Okay. Thank you, that clarified that. I was like, why the heck do they have propane way out there when the propane tanks are indicated by between building 1 and building 5? Especially if it's going to be a 3-story or a 3-sided building, so, okay.
So that's for fueling.
Off-road fuel, correct, for
Right.
the heavy equipment.
Right. Okay. That takes care of those two. The only other thing I found, sorry, Mr. Frankwitz.
No problem.
Not what you're expecting to hear, I can tell you. You have, looks like you've,
Spelling error or something?
nope, not at all, not at all.
Wow, Bob.
No, I did not find a single one. Very good. I think you should be very proud of yourself. Note 12, you have
What page, Bob?
just general notes
General notes?
on the first page, I think. As soon as we get it without knocking
The
Gary.
word will,
The proposed use of the site will be as follows, and it's blank. And that, and there's no signature block, but we have a stamp that we can use, and you have plenty of space.
Okay.
So I'm fine with that. And if the board is fine with note 12 as it is, then I don't see any reason to redo anything.
what was it meant to refer to?
Pardon me?
What
It was meant to refer to the proposed use in the table of uses. At least that's, I'm making that assumption.
Right, it's, yeah, what, you're gonna use the building?
Maybe that's better blank because they're not changing the use.
Well, no.
Well, it's just a reference.
It's for, yeah, just another recycling facility building.
What,
It's gonna be to recycle cars. The building is what it's for. Is that the question being asked, what the building's gonna be used for?
No, no.
well,
it's-
that was suggested, well,
Yeah, that was suggested, but it's,
it was starting to say what it was going to be used for, but it didn't.
Okay.
It's like blank.
we have a list of allowed uses in town for,
Okay.
retail or professional office or
I got you.
industrial, light kind of stuff. Typically, it's the use, a note like that goes to that purpose.
Okay.
I think, what is it, 12A or 5A, I forget the table of uses. You pick one that you're gonna use, so it's on the plan
Okay.
for reference, so that town staff, building inspectors, and you say, yes, we recognize this is what we're doing.
Okay.
And that triggers a whole bunch of other things like number of parking spaces, square footage, all this other fun stuff.
Are you gonna have a crusher or anything like that for the cars?
We do have a portable crusher,
You already have one.
correct?
Okay.
It showed up yesterday.
You already played with it, didn't you? You already played with it, didn't you?
I haven't.
Yeah, not yet.
I will soon. It's on my things to do.
Exactly.
Okay. Any questions from,
No.
let me see. Have we addressed item 1, James? Looks like we're good.
The delivery of the signed and stamped copies of the final plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was doing the items to be addressed at the top.
Oh,
1 and 2.
those weren't so much to be addressed in this case. It's just things that I wanted to mention in the staff report.
Okay.
Setbacks, mostly because we talked about it with the applicant in the meeting and we weren't sure, I think, when we sat down at that time, exactly what the total square footage of the buildings on site was.
Okay.
So there was some question about whether there would be, which setbacks would apply.
Okay.
But as the applicant acknowledged in
Yeah.
the packet, they already have the most stringent setbacks based on what they've got, and this building won't change that.
Right. Okay. We still have the waiver to go, but I think before we do the waiver action, we'll ask,
See
for
over
public
there,
comment.
the block there. Or did you?
Okay.
There. And that's the.
So at this point, I'll open the public comment section of this hearing. If you are a member of the public or a butter who came in late and you'd like to speak, please do so at this point in time. Going once? Going twice? Okay. So I'll close the public comment section of this hearing at this point in time, subject to reopening if need be. Okay. So we have a waiver request for the stormwater drainage to go to, or to approve or discuss.
Regarding no change in the impervious surface, is that what you're?
Well, that's the request, and that's the reason the applicant has stated, that it's going from, or essentially they're putting an impervious surface on top of it, and impervious surface. Just change them. I'm trying to think of what that would change. It would change the flow a little bit, but that's about it. It's still gonna,
It might change the direction of the flow slightly, but that's a
Right.
big pad compared to the building.
that's right.
I mean,
Brings
which
up a
way
good
in
point.
general does
What-
that drain?
What's the shape of the building? A peak ridge roof or
It is a
shed
ridge,
roof off
it
the
is
back?
a, it is a
Okay.
ridge roof, correct, yeah.
Just more curious. So,
Which way does that pad generally drain? Front, back, north, south?
Drains from, front to back. It would be lengthwise of the building. Drains towards the back of the property.
You took my pile of papers.
That one changes, and which way is the roof pitch?
It's pitched the same way.
Same way.
It's not opposite direction, no, same direction.
So it's gotta be,
I did.
can't really be much different.
I wouldn't see it affecting anything.
Mine are. There's in here somewhere, but that's okay. I don't need the
Well,
application.
you even have some more concrete pad beyond it.
We do.
And rip
So-
wrap and some other
and
stuff.
catch.
So, yeah, it's
I
not
mean,
gonna affect much.
ultimately, whatever coming off the roof would
Plans on the
go
plan.
that way anyway, so it can't really change it that much.
It's not gonna change it much.
So you're looking for a motion?
Yes, for the waiver, yes.
Yes, I'll make a motion that we grant the waiver requested.
Mr.
section-
Chair, sorry, did you open the public hearing yet?
Yeah.
I did.
Yes,
Okay.
We closed it.
Sorry, we were just checking other stuff.
yes, yes.
Continue.
I gave him 3 chances.
3 chances.
I have witnesses.
I'll second his motion.
Okay. So we have a motion to grant the waiver requested for section 9D on the stormwater drainage. And motion by Mr. Kreider, a second by Mr. McCaffrey. Further discussion on granting the waiver? Hearing none. All those in favor of granting the waiver for section 9D, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. So you have your waiver. And the only, we're good for permits? We don't think we have any outstanding that we needed.
No.
Yeah, okay. Generally, that's boilerplate, that's the reason I ask. But you don't have any, so we don't need to add that boilerplate. So essentially, all we really need for conditions is that we get 3 copies of signed and stamped copies of the plan.
Okay.
So, no changes. He even got by on section 12, and again,
Yep, a
No
couple little
spelling
changes, and
errors.
then we'll get the plans over to you.
yeah. Do we need any changes on the plans?
If he was going to make that one minor tweak for the note you mentioned on the cover.
Then I'm, the track line,
If you want to check it and,
it shouldn't be on there. I think it's an old line that was on the survey.
okay, yeah, if you could pull that off then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. If you're making them, that's fine. It doesn't need to be a condition.
You can consider those technical edits.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
don't need to be
Yeah,
a condition.
that's fine, right. I just like to be aware. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't like to trigger a reprint unless it's substantive. If you're doing one anyway, then I might provide technical edits, as James says. That certainly qualifies as one, but you're aware of it. It doesn't need to be a condition. Okay, so just the 3 conditions, or the 3 copies, signed and stamped copies. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay.
And
Case 18-09.
9, yes.
So motion by Mr. McCaffrey, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on the motion of approval. Assuming as conditions, or with 3 signed and stamped copies.
That's a
Is that the-
requirement anyway.
It is a
That's a
requirement.
requirement. I've just
Yeah.
started putting it as a condition of approval because I have mistakenly told people that we only need 1 copy in the past. So that's as much a condition for me as,
Okay, I was wondering why you put it in there. I'm like, I'm gonna follow his lead.
I wanted it to be a boilerplate condition so that we would just have the information out there and nobody would get confused.
Okay. So, maybe since the motion was made without that condition, and the second was in that condition, let's make sure the
Amend with
condition is not
condition.
included, that the motion was as read, so, because the applicant's aware of it, and we're at a vote. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. We'll take your 3 copies when you're ready, and I'll sign them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Have a good night, too.
Business.
Thank you. Both the boys. Take care of those. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. See you next week. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck over here.
No, this is my pile.
Oh, here it is.
See?
The risk. That's the risk of sitting next
There you go.
Oh, yeah, I got one of those.
As long as you're aware of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you back?
You back?
You're back.
So soon?
Yep. Why don't we take a 2-minute break? So I'll call case 18-10 at this point in time. And Mr. Frankowitz is already prepared at the table for us. Welcome again.
Thank you.
So there's a couple issues to be, or at least one major issue to be addressed before we open this, including completeness. And you have communications from Scott Martin, who's in a butter, on well, I assume it's an email or a letter dated from him on the 23rd of July, 2018. And I'll read that into the record at this point in time because it deals with completeness. And then we can discuss some of the issues brought up, and those similar issues have been brought up by town staff. Dear Planning Board members, I am writing in regards to upcoming case 18-10 and amending the subdivision approval to relocate a driveway on lot 43-2. First and foremost, I don't believe that the application should even be accepted since the subdivision approval was predicated on a shared driveway. There would not even be a 3-lot subdivision without that condition. This fact alone should be the end of the story. I personally have been to multiple meetings since the initial subdivision was approved on 5/25/06. I have literally spent hours at planning board meetings and have been involved in discussions with members of the planning board and abutters who have weighed in on the driveway cuts on the subdivision and of the situation of traffic and entrance and egress onto Route 202A, the wetlands delineation determined by the applicant and his surveyor in 2006 and reaffirmed by another applicant in 2017 led to the determination of the shared driveway, which would avoid the wetlands that are on lot 43-2. On this subject, there are 2 plot plans recorded at the Registry of Deeds which clearly show a swath of wetland across the entire lot of 43-2. There is absolutely no similarity between the current application which the board has in front of them and the one which has been recorded twice in Rockingham County Registry of Deeds showing the wetland on said lot. Also, the board should note that each time the approval has been made to this plan, the applicant, parentheses, 2 different ones at that, close parentheses, could have appealed the planning board's decision as to the shared driveway on that lot and appealed the decision by the planning board. Since that time has more than passed, I plead to the board not to rehear the subject. The land was sold without approval in place, and the house which the land was subdivided from clearly showed a shared driveway on the plan and was bought with that stipulation in place. I understand the applicant not wanting a shared driveway on his property, but they bought it that way. As for the other applicant, it is about maximizing profits on development potential, having a lot with its own driveway. Again, both lots that were subdivided from the house lot were bought together with the knowledge of a shared driveway. Having looked at the new plan that was presented, I want to definitely say the wetland does indeed extend to my property line to the north. Not only that, there is at least an 8-foot drop from the said lot and wetland delineation to my property line. It certainly does not end conveniently 20 feet from my line. That wetland drains towards my property, which has year-round standing water and cat and nine-tails, which can clearly be seen if you were to drive down Route 202A. Please refer to the original subdivision approval, and you will see the entire north side of that lot shows wetland delineation all the way to Route 202A. I have attached a survey. There is no way that a wetland could have changed to the degree shown on the new plan in the last 6 months since the planning board approved the subdivision for the second time. It should also be pointed out that the wetland was unchanged since 2006 making this new application a bit more suspicious. Please do not accept this application. The board's time is too important, and we have discussed this issue thoroughly enough without wasting additional time. Thank you, Scott Martin, abutter map 231, lot 42, dated 7/23/2018. Okay. Let's brought up two issues, one with the shared driveway and one with the wetland. Mr. Burdine has also brought up the wetland in some of his conditions and has noted the significant discrepancy between the prior applications and the current applications. Do we have the prior application somewhere?
Right here.
Okay. Lovely answer. Like to hear that.
And that includes the plan
Yes.
at that time? Okay.
Would you mind passing that around?
Would this be a time to talk about?
Sure.
Sure.
Because I think we have 3 different board members than were at the workshop. First, a little bit of background. So, when seeing those 2 discrepancies, I noted in my staff report that I wasn't qualified based on the information that I had to pick which of those was most accurate. The members that were at the workshop indicated that they were potentially interested in seeking a peer review that would have a wetland specialist look at those and determine which was more accurate, the plan that was submitted in 2006 or the plan that was then resubmitted in 2017 or the plan that you have before you. We reached out to the town engineer, who does not have anybody on staff that would be able to do that review, but he gave us a few different other consultants that he has used or that have done work on behalf of the town in the past. Linda had a conversation with Bill Warmel, who's a frequent applicant in front of this board, and I'll let her summarize that conversation. That we'll be following up with Mr. Warmel, hopefully to get some of that information in writing. But
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so James had asked me, based on the fact that there was a potential that a third-party review may be needed, to seek out a potential quote on the chance that the board decided that tonight, and that and Mr. Frankowitz had also suggested via email to us a consultant, wetlands consultant, that we could contact if we didn't have someone.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted Mr. Wormel because he is a wetland scientist and because he has worked for the town before. He has been a vendor doing surveys for the town. As well as, you know, he does private work himself. I asked him if he would have the time and would be willing to do a review of this, and he said yes. I sent him some of the information. I scanned a couple of the things so he could give an estimate. He came in this afternoon and spoke to me. And basically he said he would decline doing it. And the reason he said he would decline doing it was after he reviewed both, he said he was comfortable with the delineation, the current delineation. The reason he said he was because of several factors. One is the criteria that was used by Peter Landry in the original 2006 was older criteria for delineating wetlands. Now, we know that in 2017, there was a note that said he went back out there and checked to make sure there was still wetlands in that area.
Who he?
Mr. Landry.
Mr. Landry, the same gentleman that did it in 2006. what Mr. Wormel said was that the criteria that was used by Gove Environmental was more definitive specifically, and that they were going out there looking to specifically determine where that wetland was for the purpose of locating an easement, where the other was, even though it's broader, was to identify it originally for the division of the lot, but the more recent one was only to confirm, and nothing else was changing. Everything was the same. So I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I was left with the understanding that he said he was very, very comfortable stating that he would not feel that the review was necessary. Now, he did say also that he felt that the Gove Environmental, that the person at that firm is someone who has written a lot of the rules that all the other wetland scientists have become part of their criteria. So he said he felt very comfortable with knowing how it was done, and that he felt that there was not, that he would not question the wetlands delineation. So at that point, the board has the choice to open it up and discuss it further, or again, go by the concern here that it may not be, accurate.
You're looking for the name of the wetland scientist?
Right.
Luke Hurley.
You said a company's name, but...
Luke Hurley from Gove Environmental.
Gove Environmental.
G-O-V-E.
But
It's
Luke-
under wetland notes on sheet
Luke
204.
Luke Hurley actually did the work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's who,
He's the vice president of
but
GE.
that's who Wormel is referring to.
Yes, and the
And
thing that he specifically said, he knows,
Understand.
he knows everybody, and he said it's got nothing to do with personalities. He said specifically, it's that these folks do this work all the time, and they're very, very knowledgeable, that he didn't
Clarify what
question
you said, though.
the criteria.
You said that Luke Wormel referred to Mr. Hurley as the person that writes and therefore is intimately familiar with...
No, Mr. Gove of Gove
Oh,
Environmental.
Mr. Gove is the person intimately familiar. I'm trying to make sure I understand who's you're speaking of, and that's where I'm getting confused. So who is the person Wormel said is the person intimately familiar with the state regs and has written them?
That's Mr. Gove.
Mr. Gove.
Okay.
Owner,
And,
or I assume owner, founder of
Yeah.
okay.
Gove Environmental.
Okay, and then he's working under, or excuse me,
No.
Luke Hurley
Hurley works
under him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Luke is a wetland scientist himself as well,
Yes.
and soil scientist,
Okay, okay.
vice
So you got to
president.
assume that there's some responsibility and transfer of knowledge there, I guess. So the person Wormel was referring to, though, is not the person writing the regs, but there's a reasonable expectation that this guy would know them just as well.
Right, and he said it was no criticism in any way of Mr. Landry's work, but it was that this specifically, if you look at the criteria that was used to delineate the wetlands, is what is up to date for 2018, for now. The criteria that, and he said that they're soil people as well as know the grasses, they know,
So
everything that's listed here is
Do you know when it was changed?
is a more intensive review than
Yeah.
the older version that
Each
was
of the
done.
wetlands notes refers to the date of each criteria.
But when was the change at the state level that you're referring to? Older
There-
versus newer?
Well, it's,
Each note refers to a different source that was used in the delineation, and each note has the date of the most recent edition. So So
So
the
it's-
first one is dated October 2012, the second note refers to something updated in 2010, the third note refers to something updated in 2009.
So there was at
All
least three
three
changes.
of those would have been since the first plan that
Since
Mr. Landry
six.
submitted, correct?
So there's been at least three changes following.
Right.
Okay.
Help me understand a little bit, especially based on the last case that we just saw. The last case, they had a wetlands crossing and they had the driveway cross and I guess what I'm not quite grasping is even if this wetlands were to extend, it wouldn't, I
It
guess-
wouldn't necessarily preclude a driveway going through.
Thank you. Yeah, that's.
The applicant would, again, be allowed to put the use of a driveway to a single-unit home by right.
By right.
They would need a special exception to place a driveway that was a structure through the wetland. If they, as with the last application, if they were putting a non-structured driveway through the wetland, they would need a DES wetland permit to cover the crossing.
Okay, so,
So if this was the first time that we were seeing it, and even if they were showing a driveway going right through, that's something that the board would have the ability to approve if they needed to, going through a wetland.
okay, but hold, because I can't follow all the ands and stuff.
Okay.
So if we were at that point, the only difference in criteria would be that then they would need a permit from the state to cross the wetlands, is that correct?
If they were showing a driveway through a wetland, and the driveway was not intended to be paved within the wetland or the wetland buffer, all they would need would be a wetland permit from the state.
Okay, so this, I want to make sure I understand completely. So by not being in the wetlands, this could be a paved driveway.
It could not, because they are currently within both the wetland setback and the side setback.
Okay.
So
it's
the
gonna be
driveway
gravel-
as shown would need to be gravel anyway.
Gravel anyway. So then the idea as to whether or not the wetlands are there or not is maybe just an issue of.
The biggest implication for the purpose of this application would be whether or not they need a wetland permit from DES.
So Scott, how onerous is that?
This one wouldn't be bad, and I can explain the process of what we went through once we get to that, because the applicant had all intention of going to get a wetland permit before the wetland scientists went out there. Our intention, because we thought the wetlands were too big on the original plan, so they went out there, they got bigger, and then opened up a spot there. It changed the wetland a little bit.
So what
They
I
got-
would is,
They got bigger.
If you look at where you would cross that wetland, if you were to do a driveway across the frontage, it got wider or didn't
It
reduce
got
any.
deeper on the lot.
There was more crossing to be done.
Right.
Correct.
And it would be an expedited permit, I would imagine it'd be under 3,000 square feet. So it's not too bad. It's still
it's something you gotta,
60, 90-day process.
okay.
But the benefit of the application as proposed is that it does not impact identified wetlands themselves, only the buffer.
And DES would make us move, if we tried to do it across and do an impact, they would see that to the side and say, put the driveway over there, and wouldn't give us the permit. Because you can get
We're
around.
getting into further, a little further
Oh, you're
discussion.
saying, even if you applied, if there's a way around it, they would ask you to go around anyway, because they prefer you don't impact the wetlands.
Right.
You have it, as you have it dodging around there, I get what is delineated as the current wetland. It goes into the setback area. So, I mean, that, if it's as we encountered, Hal was saying before, as we encountered, if it was a gravel driveway, that maybe is a moot issue there, but that's still the best, you're doing that as the best option to minimize DES requirements as well as satisfy
Right.
our ordinance.
Well, I think if I understood Scott correctly, he's saying if they wanted to maybe put the driveway straight in,
It'd be
and he
more-
applied,
They'd push them over here.
they'd say, no, there's a way around the wetlands, you
Yeah.
better move the driveway.
I
And so
understood
he's, I
that.
think, preemptively sort of thinking
Yep,
their thought process there.
I follow that. We have Mr. Marston's letter here, and he's intimating that he sees this as a larger, I said Martin.
Yes, thank you.
Um,
I think we know who you meant.
larger issue.
But I would,
Because,
go ahead.
because the wetland itself is larger. It's being represented that maybe the wetland isn't that large, or standards have changed so that even the requirement now is not as stringent or doesn't, in this case, interfere with this proposal. So and we've had some effort to, coming from Mr. Wormel, to indicate that he's good with the current appraisal, you know, of the situation, and he thinks that the Govan Company or their representative is accurate. Now, the question, I don't know. It seems to me outstanding. Number one is that, do we take that as true, and if so, then we can move on that. But if it isn't true, then or we have some question, not matter of truth so much as there's something left undetermined there that we need to find out. I'm not sure right now. I'm taking your restatement of what Mr. Wormel said, and I'll take it for that. What I took out of that, not your word for word, but his bottom line, as you expressed it pretty clearly, that he was good with the wetland current appraisal that
Current
came out of
application.
Gove and the current requirements from the state. That he was clear about that. That
Yes,
wasn't
he
even borderline an issue. I mean, you made it clear that I forget how you phrased it, but you said he was really, so, anyway, I don't know if we have some other question there. I don't know, because I'm not in a position to make that judgment, and either we take it from a bona fide source, and that's that.
Let me ask a question, Joe, or maybe it's to Scott.
That's me.
Maybe,
Yeah. Let me interrupt you for a second.
Go ahead.
I want to be clear because we have Scott and we have Scott both within the same direction. So if you need to differentiate, I think we'll.
Mr. Frankowitz and Mr. Martin.
Yeah, we could do that.
Or Joe, maybe, I'm just
I
sort of
agree.
theoretically.
I like the informality,
Yeah, well, you're
but
just-
I want to be clear about that.
So I'm just going to make a sort of
Sure.
proposal. Let's assume that maybe Mr. Wormel is not right, which I've worked with Bill, does all my work, so I doubt that, but let's sort of assume that maybe and maybe some of this does extend to the wetlands, which means that you would have to at least make an application to the state. Does the state come out and inspect the area?
They tell us they do.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, what I'm getting at is, could the state be the arbitrator on this?
The state, I
So in
think,
other words-
I think the state is the arbitrator because they are the ones who will make the determination as to where the wetland, or where the driveway needs to go based on their delineation or their statement as to where
I
the
would
wetlands is.
speculate that if the applicant submitted an application for a DES wetland permit, and the plan that they submitted with that application showed no impacts to the wetlands, that DES would probably close that application pretty quick and just say, you don't need this, we're not looking at this.
Yeah, I understand. So this is where maybe it becomes a little devious. We move the driveway over to where it is in the wetlands and have them come back and specifically say, no, there is an alternative route outside the wetlands, or, oh, no, yeah, you don't have.
I don't think that they would, I think if the wetlands delineation that they're taking in with that application is showing clearly that there's space outside of the wetlands, I don't see DES coming to a site to check the wetlands on it.
So they would not do the check or arbitration for us on this either.
But we don't need to go there necessarily, because if this, because we just happened to have covered, a case before, if this can, as it exists, wetland, maybe even a little, let's say, what's this? Let's say it is a little larger than is delineated here. This could still be satisfied, from what I've heard, with a non-structural driveway, with maybe a proper culvert if necessary or something, but it could still be satisfied according to DES. Is that not right?
It could be satisfied according to Northwood's town code. The zoning ordinance would allow a non-structured driveway by right with no further zoning action.
No.
By right, both around the wetlands and in the...
Both through the buffer and through the wetland itself.
Okay, got it. Okay. Well,
Okay.
good, thank
Are
you.
we, I still need to cogitate on that, but I don't want to, I don't have to sit here and cogitate.
Well, okay,
I wanna-
let me
well, I
suggest
wanna-
that Mr. Martin is suggesting that we not open this. I think we should open it. I mean, because the further discussion that would follow would finally nail down a couple of things here.
I would also say you cannot reject the application. You can find the application incomplete.
Exactly.
And if you find the application incomplete, you need to identify what the applicant has outstanding and needs to submit
Okay.
in order for the application to be considered complete.
So we addressed the wetlands on the driveway. I want to bring up Mr. Martin's statement of it's the fourth paragraph from the signature on his letter, essentially, and it is in the, Mr. Martin, I assume that you're talking about the small brook that's indicated on the top corner of the lot, in the back corner of the applicant's property, sort of the elbow, if you want to call it, or the apex of the triangle. If you come up to the blueprint, I can point to it. It's at the top of the map.
Small brook that says.
Yeah, small brick at the very corner. That's what you're talking about with the,
On where?
on your letter about the 8-foot drop and the 20-foot.
No, it's an 8-foot drop here.
That's in the front.
You're gonna be doing fill. It's
Okay.
gonna be fill involved, no matter what, unless you're driving a car like this.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't unclear as to. Yes. I just was unclear from your email as to where you were referring to.
It's not flat.
Yeah, well.
I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that either on elevation. If you look at the sheet 2
Yeah.
existing conditions from the,
I'm seeing 554 to 552.
Yeah, is the 8-foot
right,
reference
well, it's increasing from 552
said lot and wetland and
from the, essentially the Route 202A. I mean, at the very back corner of the lot, it's going up to 568. From the, and from the proposed driveway,
But that,
the end shown, it's 556 to 558.
but wetland delineation is not in that north or back corner.
Correct.
It's
Well,
a
but
piece-
it's outside of, it's on Mr. Martin's property, it's outside of the existing.
Oh, regarding
Yeah.
the small brook,
Right,
okay,
but he's not referring to that, that's why I wanted to clarify.
okay. Yeah.
Martin, where's the 8-foot drop again, please?
But I'm telling you, from the corner, if you go to the lot corner, you can't see over the crest of that hill, it's over your head.
What?
Where this is gonna go on the side.
Are you
Yes.
talking about the north?
No, that's the north corner on Phil's Way.
On the right-hand side of the
Lot line is.
I agree that,
Go look, yeah,
from-
if you open it up, I'm gonna ask you to go look at it.
yeah,
It's kind of the east corner.
Right there, yeah.
yes.
Okay, so I'm there and I'm going,
You're going, I mean, from,
I'm
if
going
Mr. Frankwitz
east.
is correct, then I have no reason not to.
I'm going east, and so I'm like right where the wetlands are, and I look to the left and I
Why
see
you-
454, and I
No.
look to the right and I see 552.
Look, well, yeah.
Are we still trying to determine if we can go forward or?
Yes, I think so. I think we addressed the one aspect of the driveway, the differences, the discrepancies between the 2006 wetland delineation and the 2016, or the current application. It's more the, I wanted the elevation lines in, as far as impacts of the wetlands, just to clarify that. I think we resolved that pretty quickly.
I'm not certain, I mean, the 8-foot issue, how that comes to play, I mean, the suggestion is, I heard, Phil, but in that corner, the driveway is, the proposed driveway is dodging the corner. It's coming in more to the...
Yes.
More to the left side of the lot, and then it's moving over, and through those grade lines, there's only about a 2 to 3 foot change, maybe 4 feet.
If I read it, yeah, I see the
56,
proposed
54,
proposed
64,
driveway
what is that?
increasing 4 feet of
54.
elevation, going around that corner.
56, 54, yep, 56. But maybe it drops in that corner, but the driveway, yeah. But the driveway is dodging that. That corner must be wet, if it's lower. But anyway. But even if it may drop, I don't know, the proposal is dodging that or going around it, so I'm not sure why that's pertinent. I mean, am I missing something? I don't know, in your explanation, just,
I would say, 4 feet, you gotta get a drop on the driveway, I mean, you gotta,
oh, yeah, no,
yeah, that's all.
yeah, no, I agree, there's some, yeah,
Well, if we accept that, I think we're close to a decision on that. And I don't want to, if we open it, we're on the clock. And I wanted to, we had the opportunity to get some more information before we open it up. And I think we're close to making that decision. Okay. Any further, anything more you want to discuss as far as completeness goes? Are we, I am gathering from the discussion that we're okay with the wetlands delineation on the current application compared with the discrepancies of the prior applications?
Well, I don't know, look,
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
yeah, I want to take what Mr. Martin is concerned about here into account, on the one hand. On the other, part of it is, I'm sorry, obviated by current ordinance and state updating of the DES requirements. And so what I'm hearing is that even if it's more to what Mr. Landry apprised years back, this is still doable, or possibly doable.
Possibly.
And with the possibility that it's not, that the requirements are not as stringent, it makes it even more doable based on our ordinance. So I'm seeing this as not so much
Well,
a bugaboo. I just
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, because you said it's possibly doable, but I don't
but
think that's...
previous, based on the previous
Even with the
situation.
previous situation, it was doable,
Well,
because they could have a wetlands crossing, so in either...
no, but I'm going back to, I'm saying, no, you don't know that, I don't know that. The previous was more, first of all, the wetland was prized to be larger, and the DES requirements would have required more. I'm saying that's gone now.
But even so...
At least
they
from one
could-
category.
Yeah.
I think this is the point that we do want to
Yeah.
scale this back. I want to clarify that we're not talking about DES requirements, we're talking about the sources that the wetland specialists are using to delineate where they identify the wetlands.
But
So
isn't that,
those are the things that have had updated versions.
yes, well, that's what I'm sorry, that's what I meant
And
to
second,
refer to.
I don't want to move too far into discussions of what could be permitted by the code.
Sure.
I want to keep this to,
Or what the,
are we comfortable with the information that's in front of us?
Okay,
And save the discussions of the code for once the application is over.
okay, and I'm not trying to define or animate what DES may decide here, but what we're getting is that 3 changes at least have taken place. And Mr. Warmel and Gold are well aware of that, and their appraisal of this is that, if anything, it's not as
Correct.
difficult a
It's
wetland
based
as it
on
might have been.
the most current standards, some of which have changed since Mr. Landry made his initial determination.
Okay, before we go forward, I want to make it very clear that I never said, Mr. Wormel never said, and there was never any statement that the wetland requirements are less stringent in any way.
Yes.
I think he was more saying that
They have changed.
they changed, and they
It's
may
not
have
the
done a little bit
standards.
more intense indicators that
This
they...
is related to
Okay.
tools
Okay.
that are
That
used
was
for
my-
the
That was
assessment.
That
was
was
Joe's
my
statement.
reinterpretation of that. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to propose this. If we can verify that Luke D. Hurley's license was indeed in effect or whatever, then I'm going to say we...
Well, he stamped it.
Well, does that mean, is that verifiable?
Oh, yeah.
If he stamped it when his license wasn't good, he's losing his stamp.
He's in trouble.
I say then we move on based on that.
Yeah, he's in trouble.
That's the whole reason we require stamps from.
There's few people in the state prison that can attest to that.
Okay, well, I don't know what else we can do then at this point. I mean, you have
Yes.
a licensed
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the
Accept the
application.
application is complete. Okay. We have a second? Okay. Motion by Mr. McCaffrey, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on completeness. Hearing none. All those in favor of finding the application complete, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Those abstain. Okay, so we're on the clock. Let me open case 18-10. Jennifer and Matthew Fry. I'll read the application, or the abutters list. If you are an abutter in the audience, please say something and raise your hand so I know you're here. As I read your name, Brenda Berry of Northwood, Henderson Revocable Trust of Northwood, Holly Nash of Northwood, Paul Beliveau of Northwood, I think we're missing, no, sorry. Oh, sorry, my misunderstanding. I knew Mr. Martin was here, and I thought he was the owner of record, so I skipped him. Scott Martin of Northwood. Okay. So, Mr. Frankwitz, welcome, and I think we don't need to skip your intro. Excuse me, we can skip your introduction. Okay.
You want me to go through a brief?
Sure, you can do the brief bit.
Sure. So the existing 2 parcels which were approved by Peter Landry did them. And I just want to point out, on the stamp that was recorded with the wetland is dated 2006, even though he signed it this year. If you look at the stamp on the recorded plan, so he's saying the wetlands were delineated to those standards at that date.
Okay.
Not,
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's lot 43, lot 43-2 of the existing subdivision. When it was approved, obviously, you know now, that bank is the driveway easement that was on the recorded easement plan. 2 new people have own the property now. A builder owns the 2 lots, and another couple owns the house. The builder, of course, like every builder, wants a driveway to its lot without a shared driveway. So he approached the owners if they'd be willing to sign off on giving up the easement, reloan that access and make it a non-driveway. And then he would be able to get a DOT permit on this lot. We started that process. We got a review back from them. They had a couple comments. The location of the driveway was because of the sight line that we're required to do. We're going to have to do a little bit of grading on the shoulder to get the 2-foot separation from the existing ground to the sight line for winter maintenance. Other than that, they didn't have any other issues from where the location is. They do want to see a deed showing that the easement has been extinguished, and they'll probably follow up on the driveway too, that it's been taken out of use.
So they want to see that the right-of-way is gone.
Right.
Before they'll give you the other one.
It will be a requirement
Of that.
at that,
Okay.
probably, yeah,
Okay.
in the permit, when they issue the permit. So like we said, go environmental, reflag the wetlands. The intention, when I first met with the client out there, we looked at the plan that Peter did, and we looked at the wetland. We thought it was actually smaller, because they had all intention that they were going to have to do a wetland permit across it if they wanted a driveway off their frontage. Well, Luke went out there, and the actual wetland either stayed the same or got a little thicker, but different location, a little bit back and forth. It did go into the other lot a little bit more, and it came across a little bit more towards the other property line. So the intention was to go to get a wetland permit for the driveway, but with the opportunity to snake it around, we met with the town and asked about the driveway if it could go around there, and as long as it's gravel, it can go through there without a special exception or anything else. So it's proposed to be gravel, and to go around and miss all the wetland. Of course, there'll be grading of the driveway and stuff, and that will be required to stay out of the wetland. They'll have to put silt fence up at the end of the wetland and make sure he doesn't impact that wetland.
Most of your grading, though, is going to be
There is,
between 202A and the wetland, correct?
yeah, when we come in, there is a little bit of a bank there that they'll have to cut into and then go down and around the wetland. And that's about the whole application. We do have a waiver submitted. It's at the suggestion of John.
So when we saw this application last year, lot 43 comes to that point at the back, and there is a requirement that a subdivision can't create a lot that is narrower than 100 feet. The board determined at that time that coming to an acute point like that counted as being narrower than 100 feet in width, and we required Mr. Fahey to submit a waiver request for that parcel delineation. He did so, and then the board approved the application without acting on the waiver. I think by approving the application, that was a tacit approval of the waiver, but since this is an amendment of, or since this application is to amend that subdivision, my goal was to get that waiver on the books officially to make it clear that the fact that we didn't approve the waiver previously was an oversight and not a determination that a waiver wasn't needed. Mr. Frankowitz was happy to submit that request in writing. We have received it. So I would recommend that the board approve that waiver as part of this action.
Okay.
You want a motion for that? Or do you want?
Yes.
I think technically I would hold off on acting on it until after the public hearing. But I don't go so far as to recommend things to the board very often. I point out things for you to consider, but I would recommend approving that waiver.
All right, I'm checking. I want to check something. Yes.
Sub-public.
Okay. I think. 10:09. What I'll do is open the public comment section at this point in time. That way, if somebody wants to speak and they don't want to stay late, they'll have the opportunity to do so now before it gets to be beyond the witching hour. Yeah, well, whatever. So I'll open the public comment section at this point in time. Abutters have a chance to speak first, if you would like. All I ask is that you state your name and speak into the microphone. I think you're the only one here, Mr. Martin, if you would like to. Oh.
Scott Martin, I'm a butter on 202A.
Sure.
Basically, well, I mean, that's kind of disheartened to hear that the wetlands all of a sudden would shrink as much as it has versus the old town. That's the way it is. But the other thing I definitely want to bring up is the amount of the 20-foot setback. Every single piece of property I've owned in Northwood, it always comes back sometime. So, I mean, this thing's been footballed so many times, it's been sold 3 times in the last year as it is. All right, he's going to put a house up. A month after that, the guy could decide he wants to put a body shop in there. And all of a sudden, I got a business. No paving and parking within 20 feet. All of a sudden, he's got a bunch of cars he's going to paint. I mean, this is just hypothetical. So, I would rather see it get out of the 20-foot setback and go for a permit. And then I think Mr. Kreider's there. That would determine whether or not the wetlands are an issue, because it's 12 feet over now.
Well,
12 feet? No, it's 12 feet wide, it's 8 foot over.
So your comment is more the location of the driveway being within the setback?
Within the setback, because
Okay.
I know it's coming back to bite sometime. I'm going to be back here again discussing this driveway, or a driveway that abuts some piece of my property. So, and I don't know if I'm clear on that last thing. Mr. Kreider, last time, remember we had the discussion, you might have mentioned it, that driveway that went around the house, you're closing off one of those entrances, is that part of it?
Yes.
All right, I didn't really hear it back there.
Yeah, the second.
the second
The southerly one,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
No, it would be the
Right.
northern, the one closest to the lot that we're putting the new driveway in, the pink.
The pink is
That
going
would be
away.
closed,
going to keep this one?
yeah.
That was,
Yeah, I remember
I'll go
that.
back here. We had a lot of discussion on that.
Yeah.
I don't, within last year.
Clarify again just what you said, because you're pointing and I can't see, but
Yeah,
closing that one
the
and
co-
opening this one, what were
closing
you
the
referring
pink.
to?
Right, this pink is the existing easement that will be done away with in that driveway. And that because
That's, the green is the proposed.
Yeah.
Correct.
And where are the people that existing home, where's their driveway?
They've
Right
got
where your
one
finger
down
is.
here.
Hmm?
They got another one on the south side of the
Actually, on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
Do they loop around, or do they only have the one access on the road?
Currently, they have two axes.
But it was using that, they was
Using the
using, they got to use it both ways, as I remember that now. Where the pink is,
Right.
they were able to do a loop around.
Correct.
That's not going to be anymore.
Right,
Correct.
the DOT will only allow 3 cuts, and that would be the 4th one if we put one in, so.
This, by the way, satisfies something, because at the time, the abutter across the street was unhappy with where the pink was being proposed, that is the proposed driveway, because it opens right against his driveway.
That was part of it.
Yeah, that-
And he was unhappy with that. So in a way, the green at least moves it over. It moves it out of his driveway.
And the other one too. It means that the existing dwelling will have to use the lower one.
Well, yeah, yeah,
Correct.
but that was already, yeah.
So, can I finish?
Yes,
So
yes,
basically, going
sure.
back, so what I would ask the board to do is, I mean, I would like to see how it's gonna be graded and everything else, because all you have is, you don't have anything on that, it's just a piece of paper. You show some side elevations, but you're gonna need fill. It's gotta be cut. There's no way it's gonna be on an angle. And 4 feet, like Mr. McCaffrey said, that's a lot.
Well, I'm not saying it isn't. That has to remain a gravel driveway.
I understand
As
that,
far
but
as them
I
doing
understand.
something like you suggested,
I
you're
know,
fearful.
but it's,
I mean, they can't pave that without getting,
Oh, yeah.
well,
back again.
it violates, so they'd have to get an exception. I don't know how that.
But I'd just like to see where, I mean, I would just like, I'd like to know where the gravel's gonna go. I mean, it's gonna be, the snow's gonna be pushed off there, not that it matters, goes into wetland, but still.
As far as, you're talking, as far as general
The design.
maintenance goes,
Yeah, I'd like to see, yeah.
I can show you, I mean, Mr. Franklin on sheet 4 has given you the driveway grade and cut, and where along the length of the driveway it's gonna be.
I just saw the elevation.
Yeah. You wanna? Help? Sheet 4. There should be. Bottom left-hand
So
corner.
currently, this is the existing grade, so we're gonna be cutting into the bank, and then tying into the existing as we get further out back.
But that's just here. All this is right here.
It's 150 feet into the.
Right, so you're not, you have no idea what it's gonna look like over there, right?
Well, we didn't do the profile out of there, no.
That's what I'm asking.
Oh. That's why we have public comment stations and we ask questions, because we want to make sure you're,
So that to me was important. I mean, it's guarantee it's gonna be something I don't like one time. So. And that's about it. Those are my comments.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then also there's tons of trees, so I'd love to see where something's gonna be cut down. So. Better know where the lot line is.
As long as they stay on your,
I don't care. Better know where it is.
True. Okay. Okay, other members of the public who'd like to speak on this application? Going once, going twice. We'll close public comment on this hearing. Okay, let me make some.
I guess, can I ask
Yep.
just a question here?
Sure.
The 400 feet sideline, is that the state
That's state
requirement for that?
requirement.
For that,
That's-
that
that's
speed limit
Yep.
or whatever? Yep.
They
They correlate it with the speed limit there, don't they?
I believe the state's 400.
I think it's,
I thought it was 450 like on the turnpike, that's why I
I
said.
think it's ours for higher speed, but I couldn't.
Well, that's
swear
why
to
I'm
it.
saying the speed limit would be
Yeah.
according, okay. All right, because it's a little slower there than, well, some days.
Yeah, than Route 4. The other's one of the 3 state highways and 4 state highways in the town.
Okay.
Okay. I suggest we deal with the waiver request. Since we had a public hearing.
This is the
Tight corner.
delayed waiver request.
Yes.
Yes. And where's my notes? So with that, okay. So this would be a waiver to section 301E, which if somebody was making a motion, should be referenced.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the waiver request for 301E regarding, or as applied to 301E.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Mr. McCaffrey, second by Mr. Kreider to grant a waiver to section 301E as far as the lot width. Discussion on it? We clear on?
Well, only geometrically, if you had a square corner, which some lots, a lot of lots meet, if you had a perfectly rectangular line, you can measure less than 100 feet if you move into the corner on a diagonal. It's just the, well, you
yeah.
see,
It,
Technically, yes.
it reads less than 100 feet in width. This was one that
depends on where you measure.
I believe we brought to the board at the workshop just to talk through, do you think a waiver is necessary for this? And the board's determination was that, yes, we should approve a waiver for something coming to an angle like that.
I was just making a little fun of it, that's all.
Do we need a waiver for acute angle? We don't have, no, okay.
This covers it.
Okay, so my discussion on this would be, I mean, they chose to draw the lot line this way with a little jog in it, but if they were to just start at this back point and continue in one sweep, the
Then they
line
run-
would be 450 feet.
Right, but then they run into issues with 2 acres. If
On
you
lot
adjust
43-1,
both, according,
It's very precisely 2
lot 43 and
I think, well,
there's no
okay.
43
But
one.
I'm saying within reason, I think you could pull that off, and I just don't see it.
But then you get rid of, then you lose the regularity. You essentially want rectangular,
It is what it is.
rectilinear.
But all
I-
those in this consideration here are within a few feet, within 10 feet.
It's like pushing a balloon.
Yeah, so,
If you push it one place, it pops up someplace
yeah,
else.
so it's within 10 feet of being, you know,
I do want to point out that the board has approved this
Yeah.
lot layout.
yeah, so let's not go
This is
back.
mostly about the fact that we should have approved this as a waiver in the first place.
Got it,
Okay, further discussion?
no.
Hearing none. All, thank you. All those in favor of granting the waiver, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, those abstaining. Okay. Thank you for correcting a oversight from the board. Okay, so the waiver is done. We added no, we did not add the 20-foot setback, wetland setback. That still needs to be addressed.
And looking at sheet 3 of 4, where it refers to the proposed 12-foot wide driveway, I would suggest adding a condition 1B to identify that proposed driveway as gravel.
You're saying on 3 or 4?
On sheet 3 of 4, on lot
Nope.
43-2, there is a note pointing to the driveway that calls it a proposed 12-foot wide driveway. I would suggest changing that to proposed 12-foot wide gravel driveway.
Just specify gravel. Yeah.
Correct.
Where do you see that?
I think he's looking at the note midway on the plan.
Thank you. I thought it was in your report. report.
It wasn't, so I'm suggesting adding that condition as 1B.
Yeah. Okay, and then 3 copies, all federal, state, and local permits. And do we have a state driveway permit for this?
It's
Or
pending.
It's been requested?
We got a review back,
That's right, that's right. Okay, sorry.
some grading they want in the deed.
Okay. So that would lead to potentially 3 overarching conditions, and I'll read them so that we have a potential motion. They will need to be repeated, that the following changes be made to the subdivision plat, add the 20-foot wetland setback to the plan. On sheet 3 of 4, that we add the 12-foot wide gravel driveway, 3 signed and stamped copies for signatures, and any federal, state, and local permits. Okay, and then conditions 4 and 5 for the building permit, register with Rockingham County Registry of Deeds, and provide a state-approved septic. There is,
We have a state approved septic design.
We got one for it already, so.
Okay.
subdivision
Oh, just as part of the
building
subdivision.
For the building.
for the building permit.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, for the building, oh, I see. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And just a note we can add, we have plenty of space on the thing for a signature block. We have a stamp that we can use. Unless you have it hidden on another page.
It's on sheet 3 or 4 at the bottom.
There it is.
Got a big block for you. Is that enough?
That's why it's not a condition. Mikey hides them on me. Okay, so those are the conditions that are proposed. I haven't heard any complaints from Mr. Frankwitz or town staff. Any further discussion?
Motion to approve with conditions. And we're calling this 1810.
Yes, 1810. Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Mr. McCaffrey, second by Mr. Kreider. Ms. Boudreau has been very quiet tonight, which is fine. Yes, well, so am I. It has nothing to do with the application. All those in favor, say aye.
I think we need discussion first.
He asked for discussion.
Didn't I ask for discussion?
I don't remember you asking, and I just want to state something.
Okay, well, I'll ask for discussion.
I want to reference Mr. Martin's comments, and I have some feelings about how he feels about this being rooted so close to and into the setbacks and stuff. And so I can appreciate his concerns, but my thoughts are that if we were to ask Mr. Frankowitz to go for an application, the state will essentially reroute it for us, and we'll be back here trying to reapprove it at another meeting. So, while I have feelings for Mr. Martin's comments, I don't see a way around to fixing it, and so therefore, I'm inclined to approve.
I would say as well, from the board's perspective, or, well, my personal experience on the board, it is not our job to design the applicant's proposal. And we can say what we would like to see, but it's not our job to say, this is how you have to do it.
Right.
Which ends up being all the more reason to have your attitude on what the state's going to do for the driveway.
Yeah.
The driveway is going to go. I think to further what Mr. Martin's comments on maintenance, I think that becomes a neighbor issue, and there are mechanisms in the town to address that if need be. So,
I'd like to say something. I know you closed it.
No,
Not quite.
not really.
But, I mean,
Well,
I don't
yeah,
feel
we can,
like
we can reopen it.
I don't feel like I should be coming here to open up a neighbor issue when you're basically reversing a decision you made twice. To me, that to me is a big deal for the planning board. You're reversing a decision you already made.
I guess, may I speak, Bob?
Yeah, we'll, sure. Go ahead.
I guess I'd
We have
have
a
to
vote
say,
pending, but that's okay.
my feeling on that is, and don't take this the wrong way, but, property owners are in some cases like my wife, and she changes her mind.
We're gonna make sure she watches.
Wow.
You just got a whole can of worms open now.
I hope she doesn't watch public TV, but
Anyway,
Gary can send her a DVD.
yeah, all I'm saying
I'll get our
is,
guest bed ready.
I
Send it right to the
think the
address.
applicants, as you or I, we have the option, and I think it's a good option to be able to change our mind, and I think that's just part of the process. Just because it was approved one way doesn't mean somebody can't come back.
Well-
One more quick comment, I'll shut up. It's almost a chicken, the lots wouldn't exist had you not subdivided and given the condition of a shared driveway. They wouldn't exist. There'd still be one house with 6 acres. So therefore, it's a quandary. Chicken, egg.
Okay, so in regard to that, and I appreciate what you're saying. From your perspective, you're resisting it for, whatever perspective you have, which is fair enough, that's fine. And you're right. I sat in on the decision that was made when we did, and so was Bob here, for the shared driveway. And so, and there were some issues then, which kind of got more or less resolved, and one of them was by doing it as a shared driveway. The odd thing was at the time, and maybe it was because of the Landry appraisal earlier, that it seemed like going right into this lot was insurmountable. And that's what we based the decision on. Now, what I heard this evening, and granted it was hearsay, but I think reliable hearsay, and a little bit of what we know. Well,
Reliable hearsay.
well, no, well, Linda.
We're doing really well
Linda
tonight on
represented. Come on.
Let's not call it hearsay.
Well, no, Linda represented something. Mr. Warmell is not here. so-
Third parties testimony.
So I'm just saying though, but we also have a stamp. That's not hearsay. That attests that some things have changed. However much they've changed, and that warrants possibly, not always, but warrants possibly a different decision. I think that's partly what occurred. I tried to, and I think everybody, from what I heard, tried to take into account your concerns, but faced with this is doable now under current conditions, both by our own town ordinance and by whatever DS has decided at least 3 times here is the representation, that it's now doable, and it could be just stand on its own and put the driveway through. We decided it based on an earlier thing. I remember that because we hemmed and hawed about this shared driveway thing, and the other people weren't comfortable with it, but it was a solution. I'm just saying that there was a bit of a change. I don't think we've reversed something so much as reappraised it
We haven't
under
reversed it
newer
yet.
conditions, that's all.
Mr.
We still have to
Chairman,
vote, yes.
add a comment before you close this. I think it's important to know, and it should be on the record for Mr. Martin's concerns as well as people who might be listening. In March of 2017, this planning board put a amendment on the zoning ordinance to clarify that all driveways would be 20 feet from boundary lines, and it did not pass.
It was defeated.
It was defeated. So this board did make that attempt to try to move residential driveways away from the lot lines as well. And that was recommended by Mr. Sullivan, who preceded
Yes.
Mr. Burdine from Stratford Regional.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
folks
we're-
didn't go along with it.
So are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor of granting the conditional approval of case 1810, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. And you'll get a letter of decision with those, however, it's 5 points
Thank you.
with 2 sub-points on it. So, thank you. I'm going to take a 2-minute break. Okay. So I'll call case 18-11. Scott.
Hold.
Oh, yeah.
Only have 3 members in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Thought we were on a break.
We were on break.
It's like
What was Hal
45
doing?
degrees in here. My drink froze over there, I think.
See, it's
Yeah, we're not the only ones, huh?
It's a lot colder right here than
I
it
was
is back
listening to
there.
the
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, it's like getting burst once in a while. You're like, I've been so hot lately, though, I don't really want to complain about it, you know?
Shut them off.
yeah, that's true.
We got emergency blankets in our trunks we're gonna bring in.
Yeah, right?
Gloves.
I had to bring my parka to the town meeting.
Well, Gary's philosophy is nobody falls asleep. That's what.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's not like when it's too hot.
Yeah.
Hypothermic shock.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine before cell phones. How boring would that have been?
Oh, thank you.
It's pretty exciting.
Sometimes you just gotta
Waiting for a
take
fist fight
shots,
there for a
right?
minute, you know? I was hoping this guy would get mad, this guy would get mad, you know? But no.
Yeah, okay.
It's your fault.
Your
We
fault.
started, we looked over and you were gone.
Yep. Okay. We're still being recorded
We
here?
only have 4, Hal, so if you leave the room, we're...
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. You should have followed the rest of our lead. Okay, so we'll call case 18-11, John Ward of 1548 First New Hampshire Turnpike. We had a chance to review this last, or two weeks ago. Driven past, and we'd look at recommendations for completeness. And I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
I move we accept it as complete.
second.
Issues.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Mr. McCaffrey. Discussion on completeness. Let me get all my notes together here. Make sure I have it.
This one page is much better.
That's big.
Okay. Hearing no discussion on completeness, all those in favor of finding 1811 complete, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, those abstaining. Okay. So we found your application complete. We've accepted it. I'll open case 18-11. That means we have 65 days to make a decision if we need that long. You can request an extension. If not, we'll act on that information we have at 65 days, if not sooner. Okay. That's just a way so that you're not hanging out there and we're not holding you up. Okay. Since I opened it, I'll read the abutters list. Granite State Properties of Concord, Richard and Sarah Shaw of Northwood, Morrison Revocable Trust of Henniker, William and Cheryl Joseph of Bristol, New Hampshire, Brandon and Christine Albert of Northwood, Higginson Land Services of Henniker. Since we don't have any of them here, that'll be okay. Why don't you introduce yourselves and give us an overview of what you want to do.
I'm Dan Higginson with Higginson Land Services. This is Scott McMichael, owner of Route 4 Truck and Trailer. So the lot currently has a site plan on it, but it doesn't address the outdoor display area where Scott parks his trailers that get sold. So what we've done is we essentially copied the existing site plan, cleaned it up a little bit so it was easier to read and follow, and have depicted those display areas where they're going to be on this plan for review. We didn't do any actual survey work on the on the property and talking with the town staff, and it was adequate to just copy the original plan, let you know what we're doing with the property now, and show those display areas.
Okay. Sounds good. I do have a couple questions just that I want clarification on the end, realizing that this is an amendment to existing site plan, but we can dig up, but I'd rather not waste the time. The front corner is curved of the lot, front bottom right?
It's all per the reference plan, so
Just, I thought that was a bit odd.
there might have been a right of way. I didn't even look into it, because for the sake of what we were doing, it was just existing plan, we're showing these areas.
Would that complicate, if this is an amendment, and we state that it's amendment from existing lot lines, will that complicate anything on?
A site plan can't amend the lot lines.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was double checking.
This isn't a subdivision, so
Right.
this shouldn't impact anybody's property ownership or the tax maps or anything like that.
I like to ask, but just double checking. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Can we zoom in? I'm having trouble picturing where this is.
The old Hancock lumber?
That doesn't help me either.
He wasn't here then.
Oh, you are new hat.
Northwood Lake is like-
The formerly Easy Dock or Dock,
Yeah, easy docking solution.
Easy Docking Solutions.
Just before the marina on the right-hand
Yeah,
side.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Across from the old bookstore.
Got it now. Yep, okay. Thank you.
Okay, and
It's an antique,
Yeah.
the only other comment I'd like to make on the display area, on the existing display area, that's between the fence and the edge of the pavement, is that correct? If you go just down from just below the existing 3,097 square foot building. Keep going. Yep. Move your finger down. No, move your finger down. Yeah, exactly. That existing display area.
That was on the original site plan. There's nothing that's displayed there. We're not looking to park trailers there or anything. It's just, basically I copied what was on the original plan. I don't know what was going to be displayed there.
There's really not enough room there, and it's not fenced in, so I wouldn't put anything out there.
Okay, that's sort of what I was wondering, because when I
Well-
initially read that, I
Right.
thought, oh, it's in the.
It's the front lawn, really.
It's the front lawn, or the whole display area was essentially the curved dash line.
Yeah,
It's
right.
going out onto the edge of the.
Initially, I think that the property was retail inside, but whatever our product is here, we'll throw one in the lawn so people driving by can see what we do.
Sure. Okay.
So are both driveways used?
No, the one is fenced off, and it's closed all the time. It's just the one open, and there's not that much traffic in there anyway, so it's, plenty of
The
room.
east side one is closed off.
Yeah, I thought you had stuff parked there in the, yeah. I mean.
Yeah,
right
there's
up to the
stuff
fence and
back in there,
everything,
yeah. It's nice that it's closed in. I mean, we obviously aren't gonna close the gate at night, but it's,
Yeah,
at least you only have one way in and out,
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, but it's already approved for 2 driveways in and out. Is that correct? That's what it looks
I
like.
would make
Yeah,
that
it's paved
assumption.
all the way to the road, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
what
I'm
are
not seeing
the,
any questions as far as traffic flow or anything on the
Not
site,
changing-
or
You're not changing the
not changing
business.
just really adding
You just,
the only one of the comments I had, and I don't think it'll talk with James about it earlier. I don't think it really changes anything. When the fire and police department saw the application, the square footage was different. It was the 11,000 some number, 678, something to that effect. And you have
what number was different?
Fire department.
we always ask the fire department to review it.
Yeah.
I gotta find the sheet.
well, as the 2 storage buildings are, what, 11.4, is that what you're seeing there, maybe? And then there's the existing sales office, which is even more. You're saying there was only a certain amount? Maybe?
Oh, right there, sorry. Police department and fire department review, the addition of 11,800 square feet outdoor display area.
Oh.
But the application is 21,000.
Well, that's
That's
the
good.
addition of 11,000. There was existing outdoor display area permitted on this site previously.
Okay,
I think there was
never mind.
space for a small flea market. So they're sort of reallocating where that outdoor display area takes place.
Okay. that clarifies.
So some of it is existing being sort of shifted around and some of it will be additional.
Okay, that takes care of it. Okay. Questions?
What are the symbols, the line and circles?
The chain
string?
link fence?
Hmm?
That's a chain link fence?
Is that meant to be a chain link? Okay. It's interesting.
So one of the questions was whether it was existing or proposed, so I added existing to the legend, because it's all there in place. There's absolutely no changes to the site being made.
Okay, yep.
The existing display area, I only, and it's the one that you have stated in the center next to the sign. Is that, do you plan to use that?
No, that's what we were just saying, that, it's out by the road there, I mean, it would be asking for someone to steal a trailer.
It's also within the setback that we'd be talking about normally, and you've got the setback delineated, but that's, it may have been,
That was just previous, right?
Yeah, it was just, I mimicked everything that was on the previous site plan and then changed what they were looking to have be different.
I only might ask that might not be there any longer in the in the plan.
Well, it was
If
for the
it's-
prior site plan.
What?
It's
I know it's on the prior site plan, but then, oh, okay. So you're, okay. So it's getting,
This is an amendment to the existing site plan.
and that was there before, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it could be removed if you wanted, if they wanted to remove it. No reason not.
Well, it was,
Well, I think the intent of it, I don't know when the first site plan was done, you know, I look at it as it's an area in the front of the road where if you,
If you wanted to put up flags
Something, yeah,
like
wouldn't want to take it away, but I wouldn't put anything
exactly,
out there. where it-
it's useful for, something.
Sure.
So I don't want to take it
I
away.
think it was there, it was actually there before that fence was
Right.
put in place, and I
I
can
look at
recall,
like
That would make more sense,
easy
yeah.
docking solutions could put like a small dock in there. Sure. So,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
they used to sell canoes and kayaks, and
There
they'd
you
have
go.
one out there,
Right.
that little space.
Yeah, so that's the,
I'm not,
and the proposed area to the left is trailers, is that what I saw?
Yeah, just trucks and trailers, bring new trailers and some used trucks.
And the back area is part of the flea market situation, the back display area.
it was a flea market situation. Now it's mainly used when they bring in for unloading and such. There's nothing being displayed there at this exact point in time, but it's a flat area that could be used for it, and they do use it a little bit for loading and unloading, so we just figured it would be good to include that when we came here, so that way if anybody saw activities happening back there, there'd be no question.
Right, because that's where when the guy pulls in on load, we kind of put them there and then I move them. But if the inventory gets built up a little bit, I can,
Yeah, but you'd like to be able to use it maybe as a...
just to have them there, right, not have an issue,
Essentially,
right?
Not have to worry about moving.
Not have to come back
And
if
come
it
back
winds up
here.
growing, or
And
what
freeze
have you.
again.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
shouldn't be freezing that.
Maybe it'll be winter and we'll just be
Perfect,
dying, the
yeah.
wood
There
still
you
will be cranked. It'll be
This is
good.
one of those things, you do this once and you never do it again, I hope, right?
There you go.
Those
Exactly.
crack, we're in trouble,
Okay,
because there's no chimney.
It's just decoration.
It's all right.
yeah, exactly.
Let's try it.
Well, you
Look at
could
the
use
fire
it, but
department
we
down
wouldn't
there.
want it.
Yeah,
Good
Okay,
smoke down.
we'll burn that thing over there. We'll just
There
take,
you
you know what I
go.
mean?
Get the
Nobody will
fire
mind.
department down
They won't notice,
That's
right?
pretty cool. I didn't notice that before.
Okay, parking. You have,
So the original plan had 22 spaces. 5 of those spaces were over here alongside of the building where we're going to use for display area. There's 17 spots. I didn't count the one along the fence, so there's
Okay.
almost technically 18. And that is more than adequate for the activities that go on there. There's never an issue. There's certainly plenty of room around the backside where we could show more parking, but we weren't looking to, inundate the plan with parking because those spaces are more than adequate for what goes on there. It's not a high volume retail situation. It's
A lot of deliveries and stuff, and the walk-in traffic isn't as good as I want it to be, but it's not, usually there's not more than one person there at a time.
I was gonna say, I rarely see the first bank of lot or parking spaces filled, let alone the other half. I don't think I've ever seen the other half filled, so, yeah.
Is any proposal, the area, this area here, I've been over there too. There's blacktop in here in some places. Is it all?
Yeah, it goes around the building and.
It does. Okay.
It's quite a bit of it, yeah.
There's something over here. I think, isn't there blacktop here too, more or less? Or
That's
no?
a gravel area. There's like a brush pile, and there's a lot of like vegetation that's kind of growing up. It's been somewhat uncapped.
And what is this? Where the proposed display area?
That's gravel. Yep.
It's gravel now, and you're going to leave it that way.
It's all going to stay exactly as it is.
Just cleaned it up.
I think that the display area in the back corner of it was gravel at one point in time, but it's just been left without anything on it for so long that the vegetation has grown up, so it looks like it wasn't, but it is.
Okay.
So no changes to the surfaces.
Okay.
I think that would be the only thing, change I'd make or request, but James pointed out is that you indicate that the.
Yep, so on this plan, I added gravel display area, and then there's also the question of the stamp plan, so I put a stamp on this plan. I don't stamp a plan unless it's required, and I don't sign it when it's a preliminary, so that way there's no question if you have the most recent plan or an older one, if you see one that's not stamped.
Okay.
Makes sense. Okay. So have your issues been addressed or questions been addressed?
Yeah, I would say there's no need for a waiver if the applicant's willing to stamp the plan. To go back to parking, I don't think we necessarily need to identify the closest proposed or the closest applicable comparable use from Northwood's parking standards. I think the board can approve parking that it finds sufficient in this case, because we really don't have a parking standard that I think is a good fit for outdoor display. I noted the requirements if we were treating this as retail, and it's just astronomical and does not make sense for this use. And if the note is showing that the chain link fence is there, I couldn't tell from the aerial to be sure. So yeah, those changes should take care of it for me.
I think I don't know, did you add the word existing to chain link fence?
Yep, so down here on the legend, it says existing chain link.
My eyes aren't that good.
It does say chain link.
My eyes aren't that good
Yeah.
to look over there, to read that from over there, but.
I thought it was a lighting display one.
And I did want to confirm, just so we can technically get the language correct, in the condition, the permits for the truck and trailer sales, those come from the Department of Safety.
Say it again. Sorry.
So you need a permit, a state permit from somebody.
Yep, from the dealer license.
The DMV.
Yep.
Okay.
And that should be received within.
And we're listing that as a condition subsequent because one of the conditions they require is that local zoning permit the sales. Mm-hmm. So we need to enact our permissions before they can issue their permit.
Okay. So to my understanding, that leaves just recommended conditions, just 2 and 3 remaining. Numbers 2 and number 3.
Yeah, so we can renumber those as 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we down at the bottom? Recommended conditions.
Yeah, the recommended conditions is essentially 1, A, B, and C have been met.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just leaves
3 copies and
3 copies.
Necessary state permits.
Exactly. Okay. You clear on what you need?
Yeah.
As far as getting us the
So
3
you
copies.
guys would be happy.
Well,
So you can sign off on it and I can.
So we just need to get 3 copies, and then when he gets his approval from the state, bring that to you, and
exactly. And then I'll sign the copies.
Sure.
Cool.
Okay. I would entertain a motion. Actually, unless there's anybody here who wants to make a public comment?
Nobody here, I don't think.
I don't think so.
We wore them out.
Okay,
Okay,
we did.
1811, I'll second.
Who made
You
the
said
motion?
motion to approve.
I did.
Oh, you did, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear that part. Motion by Mr. Kreider, second by Mr. McCaffrey. Discussion on approval. Or the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, those abstaining. Okay,
Great.
good to go.
Thank you guys very much.
Fill all those
Sorry to
parking
make you wait
spaces.
for as long as you did, but thank you for your
Yeah,
patience
hey,
in that first.
he told us it'd take a half an hour. So I'm sitting there going, half an hour? I mean, it can't be that long, you know? Then it was like, I didn't even realize it was 9:30.
Didn't tell you when the half hour started.
Get them all in one night, then have.
I was late. The worst part is it was 6:27 when I left my other shop down there, and I was flying up through here. I'm gonna be late, and I ran up there. And, oh well.
Summer can be
So I
tough
used to have a
sometimes.
place down at the bottom of the hill, right where it changed to Nottingham, Best Buy.
Oh, I know what you mean.
So I started there. Selling used cars is just no fun. You know what I mean? You can't make anybody happy. You can sell the best. You know, you can try to do the best, and oh gosh, yeah. You know that no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Like he is when
I
when
was
he was
just gonna
talking to his
say, I have
wife.
another comment about my wife. Yeah, right. So are we gonna do any, master plan work yet tonight, Bob?
I don't
I
think
didn't bring master plan work to be
That's,
done.
That's,
there was CIP information that was emailed to everybody this afternoon. Is that correct? Okay.
really,
Let's look at that later.
Hang on. It's not quite
It's not
the witching
midnight
hour,
yet.
but I am going to go on the record. It's not midnight. We haven't had a midnight meeting in a long time.
yeah, just wait. You're
I don't
asking
think
for
you've
trouble.
had worse than 11:30 since I've been here.
We can go that late?
There was a pretty late night.
But that was
Pretty
with,
late
It
night.
might have been
That was a
the
regular.
night that we had. No, I tell you what, it was.
Was that with you?
Johnson's night.
Yes.
yes, we did
Yeah, there
with,
was
Johnson's,
one.
we
late.
had some really late
Yes, yes.
meetings.
Okay. I've gotten a lot better since when I first was chair.
we don't
We
learn.
haven't had many past 10 o'clock. Anyway,
We're sprinting for 10 o'clock
we're
now.
not sprinting. We're going to be out in about 10 minutes if I have my druthers. So you got how many documents from the town? We got the town, the school.
I got one from the school, I got a number of them, I think 5 each from library and fire.
Okay. From the CIP process, and Hal might be a little familiar with this from Hudson or prior use. Joe, I think you were sat on some of this. Based on the information we have now, that you have in the email,
That I didn't look at.
that's okay, I didn't.
It's
know
lots
about
of pages.
it. Yeah, it's lots of pages.
Here's some,
Here's copies.
library
Some
and fire.
printed if you want printed copies, most of,
Is this
Take
all
them
over
and
these
scrap
ones?
them.
No, it's just, that you can take those, this is just
Okay.
library and fire of the new
Okay.
requests. They were separated into five.
What my process for it,
Same, right?
yeah, I guess there's 5, or there's 3 different copies. Or 3 different parts.
3, 5 each?
There's,
Five?
yeah, there's 3 pieces of information each. 2019, purchase 2019.
You're welcome.
Okay. There is a copy on, looks like the 3rd page of my spreadsheet that I use from last year.
I actually didn't mean to put that in there, but.
Oh, but I'm
now
glad you
have
did.
it.
I'm glad you did. What I would like you to do for next time is to take a look at this, line it up, and figure out how much money is being requested in total, which you could probably do in about 2 minutes, if not less. If I, based on this information, what the average expenditure is per year. So if The library is asking for $10,000 in 2019. Oops, that's the same copy.
I was just gonna say, I paged through it, I don't think we have all the right stuff here.
Yeah, no,
There were two separate
there's two
files.
separate files.
One was thicker.
That's the same.
So one is library and one is fire?
Yeah.
What do you have?
Okay,
I have
yeah,
library.
so there's,
Fire.
Thank you.
okay, for instance,
Fire
let's
or
look at
library?
fire.
Just library.
Let's look at fire, just to make it easy. So in 2019, fire is looking on the first page at 138,000. Third page, 2020, they're looking at 410. Fifth page, they're looking at another 50 in 2019. Next project is 260,000 in 2019.
But none of these are the building, these are
This
just,
is not the, oh, and no, here's the library again, which is fine in the back, so $10,000 in 2019. So massive expenditures in 2019, not as much in 2020, and we haven't gone out 10 years yet. So based on this limited bits of information, what the questions come in, what can we slide around? How can we fund it? You know, can we take that $410,000 major purchase and in 2020 and say, we're going to allocate, I'm just pulling numbers out of there, 205,000 in this year on a warrant article and establish a capital reserve fund and add it to the existing capital reserve fund, and another 205,000 in 2020, we meet the needs. That reduces our tax base. So that's essentially what I do in that spreadsheet. And all it is a whole bunch of calculations to say, yeah, we're doing this, here's the averages, that kind of stuff. You can do it on paper yourself if you want, you can do your own spreadsheet. But I would like you to come up with a plan that averages out, or what are methods that we can do to meet just these two needs, so you get an idea on a very simple level what we're going to need to do as a town.
Do you have last year's spreadsheet
Yes.
in Excel?
Yes. Yes, I can email it to you if you want.
Please,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we can.
And you can blank it out and add it to yourself and play with it. But it's literally a matter of,
And
you
that
know,
spreadsheet you're referring to?
yes, that's exactly the spreadsheet. But I'll send you the electronic copy of it. But it's a matter of saying, okay, do I take that $410,000 and do I divide it up over 2 years? Do I divide it up over 3, 4, 5? Do we want to do a bond and pay off the interest on it so we can get it up front and pay it off on the later end? You know, just moving things around.
And that's a chunk of expenditure, because in this case, it's a fire engine that's being talked
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
So it's,
Exactly. And it's a matter of just
it's not something
saying,
that can be bought in pieces.
correct. Well, it could, well,
we got the last one in pieces.
But Lego has one, but still.
we can fund it in pieces.
Right, I was gonna ask you.
Yeah,
funding
no, we can
question.
fund it in different
Yeah.
ways, yeah.
Because bonding, what are the criteria? Is there a minimum amount you can bond? Or is there a minimum amount that is cost effective to bond?
There would probably be a minimum amount that would be cost effective to bond, but I don't know what it is. Essentially, we go to the,
Do you know?
yeah, that would be a town administrator
Is that
Well,
question.
they were talking about if we did the addition on the,
Generally, bonding is for, I would say,
no, they were talking about if we did the addition on the
like-
Narrows Fire Station, it'd be like $500,000 to get a bond for that.
Oh, so they were considering it even at $500,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen bonding at $250,000.
Yeah, you can
Okay, that's
So
fine.
it really,
for
it really
anything.
But
depends
they're
on
also
the-
talking at the last selectmen meeting about pursuing the safety complex
Yeah,
more seriously, because $500,000 isn't really gonna fix the situation.
yeah. No, I understand all those
Yeah,
things that have
yeah.
to be sorted out. I was just more saying, based on your experience, what numbers have you talked
Who's,
about in terms of?
who's they?
bonding?
You're talking about the fire department saying that? or-
No, the selectmen.
Signature?
Okay.
Just correspondence.
Okay. So that's what, given that I didn't get the spreadsheet and we don't have all the town information, that's what I want you to do. But that way, at least, you have an idea of the process that we're going through for the CIP.
Susan, you said there were 3 of these, library, fire, and what's the other one?
Nope, I only only printed out.
Oh, just those two.
Library and fire.
Okay.
The email is, I think it's 14 pages, and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is all of the new projects that were not in last year's CIP. So if you have last year's CIP spreadsheet and you look at the PDF that you were emailed today, that will be all of the projects. So you got the project narrative forms for the new things, and you'll have the spreadsheet that has the old things from last year.
Okay. Bob, could you do a favor and send me that
Yes.
same spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm gonna spread the spreadsheet out to everybody.
Does
You
that
guys send it
spreadsheet,
out, because I have it. Do you want me to?
If you wanna send it out, that's fine. You'll probably get to it before I will.
does that spreadsheet reflect the proposed CIP or?
That's last year's. That's the CIP that we adopted. So just blank it out.
Do we need to make any adjustments?
I only saw the PDF.
Moved by the town, or did everything that was in the CIP get approved?
No, not everything got approved.
So part of what you would be discussing is what to do with the things that were in year 0 last year that weren't approved.
So Linda, if before you send it out, could you highlight those?
The ones that,
Were not
Approved and not approved?
So just so
Well-
we know.
Well, it's
if
on
you
the
can
budget.
wait if you can wait till at least Friday night, I will be glad to do that.
Yeah, just,
Yeah, I'd rather Bob amended his own
okay.
sheet.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I don't want, that's why we do it.
It'd just be
I-
good so that we're all
It's very,
starting on the
very
same basis.
complicated, but
That's
it's,
that's
we got a
not
lot
nearly
of
complicated
information
as some
on
of
there.
the stuff I do, but that's okay. I would not want to voice that on you.
It'd be better to all start on the same
Thank
page
Yeah,
and not
exactly.
somebody can say, oh, wait a minute, where's this 50,000? Oh, well, that was already approved, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So, start on the same basis.
But,
Well, you moderated it, don't you remember?
okay.
Not the,
That was a condition of approval.
Yes. Okay.
So, I guess we'll just
Yeah.
hang on to it.
That's fine. The
Copies in whenever they do turn in their application.
Northwood zoning board chair, Strobel, planning board members. Well, they address it as zoning board to me, just out of curiosity. Doesn't matter. Well, I'm just reading this from Granite State Properties LLC, from the, which is Johnson's. And that's Granite State Properties?
Eames. Is it the Eames?
Who's Granite State Properties?
Yeah, that's, Eames.
Eames, which is which one?
Oh, well, they haven't come to us yet. They will be. They had to
Oh.
get some zoning. It's the large subdivision
17.
that backs out from Route 4 to Old Turnpike Road.
It's actually, for the site plan that we just approved, it's the large parcel to the back and east of it.
Okay.
well, that's
So
the one we
Mr.
went on the Conservation Commission walk.
When Tom
Yes.
Johnson did
Yes, that's right,
he
too.
put in the condition that he wanted the Conservation Commission to
Right.
state in writing that they
Okay.
were okay.
So what's the
So
point of
for-
this?
The Conservation Commission has addressed, or the applicant has addressed all the concerns of the Conservation Commission that were addressed at the site walk.
Relative specifically to the special exception, not,
Yes,
once it
exactly.
comes to the planning board, then you'll look at it.
Seriously, Eric Ryder? That's a little out of date on there.
Didn't they move like a decade ago?
I've been on the board for 12 years now. Yeah.
At least.
So,
How
yeah.
long you been chair, Bob? We can look
At
at
least
it.
8. At least 8.
I've been in town 9 years, or 10 years, so
Close to
it's
that.
been, been at least 9, yeah, but I'm on my 4th.
They addressed it to,
Pardon me?
not you, but to Eric?
Yeah, which is okay. It means DES.
Well,
I don't know what that is. And, oh, this is FEMA maps. The flood maps, looks like the nearest one is Candia at 1 o'clock. Oh no, Northwood, 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock on August 21st. at UNH for discussion of the updated flood maps for town. If you want to go, you can go at that point in time if you have any comments on it.
When is it going to be?
It's August 21st, which is a Tuesday, at the Elliott Alumni Center at UNH Durham between 4 and 5. I'll add it to my calendar because I actually might make that. And I'll read that, and I'd entertain a motion if there's anybody else.
So moved.
Any discussion? Well, we need a second.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Anybody has any problems with adjourning? Too bad.
Yeah.